What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering, and I promise you a hilarious tale of a woke backfire for video game journalists, wannabe real journalists over at IGN and Kotaku. Now, we've talked often about why outlets like Kotaku and Polygon and IGN are all so politically motivated when their readers really just want to hear about the latest video game. Look, there's no reason to go to IGN these days. I mean, there is a saying, you can't spell ignorant without IGN. There's no reason to go to Kotaku these days. The real journalists have long gone from that outlet. It's mostly filled with remaining hyper ideologues. There's no reason to go to Polygon, although Polygon seems to be tiny bit better these days. But the real issue is that most games journalists want to be journalists, and that's why they are constantly weaving political conversations into their coverage of video games. That's why everything gets so hyper politicized in the gaming space, because the people that are writing the press, the people that are producing the games, live and die by politics. And over the weekend, IGN decided to make a massive oopsie and start an internal battle between locations of their company, both IGN America and then IGN Israel. Now, if you've been following the world's stage, you know exactly what's going on between Israel and Palestine right now, and I have no political take outside of I wish the best for all the civilians, all my viewers and their families. I understand every time I cover this topic, there's a lot of heated emotions, but understand that I'm recognizing a deficiency in my knowledge on the topic and staying out of it. I think that is far better than adding half-baked platitudes into it like many of the politicians in the United States have done, or even worse, outright calls in the video game space. So IGN put out this how to help Palestinian civilians, and they had the Palestine flag on it right on their main website. Within minutes, this had caused massive upheaval. Palestinian civilians are currently suffering in great numbers in Jerusalem, Gaza, and West Bank due to Israeli forces. The New York Times reported that most of them have occurred in Gaza, blah, blah, blah. So they try to raise money for Palestinian lives. Look, in America here, we have tons of our own problems. This was a interesting angle to take at IGN. By the way, IGN, the video game website, the largest video game website in the world. And within minutes, IGN Israel points out, "Dear netizens, we are also amazed to discover this morning a misleading and confusing donation campaign found on the American IGN website. It's important for us to emphasize that we condemn this action and we did not take part in it, or were we aware of it. It is not our way. We at IGN Israel support our state, obviously, and support the idea of soldiers who are doing everything to keep us all safe through these dates. We are working in all possible ways to remove this misleading content from the American edition, which does not represent the views of any IGN editions." Immediately blows up in their face. You can see it's cataloged by Colin Moriarty. "I find this so strange, not for other reasons than IGN's seemingly increased need to shove the personal politics of its staff into the faces of readers at every possible turn, no matter how unassociated with their product or completely irrelevant it is to their audience." You see them having the fundraiser here, and then minutes later, they changed it to the Red Cross after receiving backlash. You can see here, "When you inevitably get laid off from Kotaku, I'll be sure to recall the time you brought up a 2 decades old writing of a 16-year-old in an attempt to, quote, own him." And this is, Colin has plenty of people that dislike him strongly in the gaming space. I don't know him personally. He feels like a guy that I should know, honestly. But our paths just really have never crossed. So then IGN America puts out this statement today. What a mess. See, if only they had just stuck to video games. I mean, if only. IGN, the video game outlet, could have stuck to video games, none of this would have happened. Then they post this. Across IGN, our hearts are heavy as we follow the events in Israel, Palestine, and across the region. Our first thought is always for the broader IGN community. Bull. Our employees, readers, and partners, and hopes for their safety and well-being. Also, bull. You have a literal location in Israel. You didn't care about your co-workers at that point, did you? We have a track record of supporting humanitarian efforts and charities across the globe. In the instance of our recent post regarding how to help civilians in Israel-Palestinian conflict, our philanthropic instincts to help those in need was not in line with the intent of trying to show support for all people impacted by tragic events. No. Yeah, it was obviously biased. IGN picked a side and decided to give their money to that side. Now, again, I'm not saying whether that's right or wrong. I'm just saying that's what they did, and it blew up in their face. By highlighting only one population, the post mistakenly left the impression that we were politically aligned with one side. Are you joking? Are you trying to play this off like an oopsie daisy? Are you saying, well, we actually support both sides, but, I mean, technically we're only raising money for one side, but we kind of support the other side too. That was our intention, not our intention, and we sincerely regret that error. Of course it was your intention. We do intend to continue to use our platform and resources to aid civilian lives impacted across the entire area. As part of this effort, we've made a donation of $25,000 to Save the Children, an organization that works to support children everywhere and provide emergency aid and other money. Thank you for support of IGN, and we're engaging with us. Our community is a huge part of what makes IGN special. We will continue to follow global events and look for ways to lend our support. Let's see. 200 retweets, 3,400 likes, and 4,500 retweets. Let's see what they say. Here we have Stephen Totillo from Polygon, or Kotaku, former Kotaku editor-in-chief. The unsigned statement is the only communication about the decision. Very clear from sources, subtweets, etc., that the newsroom is upset about it. IGN's Israel post condemning IGN Palestine's relief article was also removed. No longer on Instagram. What a cop-out of a response. F IGN. I mean, what's happening? All these, again, when you pick a side that you really don't belong involving yourself with, you're going to invite a lot of people to hate you. Again, my statement is simple. You may call it weak, but I just don't know enough about it to really, and my interest is really in the civilians' safety. Here's Mike Drucker from writer for television, okay, stand-up comedian. You can tell IGN's corporate owners are sincere because they posted this at midnight while the IGN staff was asleep and couldn't respond. Cowards. You could tell they were forced to do this by IGN. Here's Vosh. IGN showed some unexpected support and corporate shut it down. This was definitely typed by a person against their will. Go F yourselves. I mean, everybody. This is, can't begin to imagine what kind of a mess IGN editorial is going through right now, as I'm sure pulling that piece was not their call. So many levels of horror here, and the points to how corporate can control journalistic freedom. This is so harmful. Well, you have a video game website. You picked a side in a extraordinarily high tension, complicated issue because you're a bunch of 25-year-olds who really wish you were writing about political news, but you couldn't get a job doing that. So you write about video games, and it shows. It's so obvious the disdain so many of these writers have, not just for video games, but for gamers themselves. It's because they really don't like their job. This is some of the most spineless corporate stuff I've ever read, and I hope the folks at IGN get to have their say about it when it was clearly not written on behalf of any of them. Way to sanitize some very bad things. This is an editor at GameSpot. Now, GameSpot, of course, put a political message out on it. And this whole thing, you see Kotaku, which long stopped being an actual or a video game website, and it's just basically a politics one now. You see most of these people, you have IGN takes down article and tweet sharing Palestinian aid groups. This is like the biggest. This is a big deal for Kotaku and fake game journalists because this is the stuff they really want to write about. IGN has since issued a statement saying the original post was not in line with our intent of trying to show support for all people impacted by tragic events. Well, again, following the main site's removal of the Palestinian post and its BS statement, South Africa-based IGN Africa briefly republished a story linking to relief efforts before it was too removed. So what you have here is, internal strife, employees that really want to talk about politics because that's actually what's important to them. And look, obviously, if you're directly impacted by things going on there, this is probably more important than the latest video game news or the latest video game trailer. But that's not what people go to Kotaku.com for. That's not what people go to IGN.com for. Now, there are certain people there that they've now cultivated to want political issues. But why? Why? I was pleasantly surprised to see that tweet last night, but now I'm unpleasantly mad at these cowards at IGN. Way more mad than I would have been when they ditched this comment platform. Why? Why do you need video game websites to carry your political opinions? And you see, most people understand that this was corporate. Owned. I don't know who owns Kotaku, but certainly you see their parent company Ziff Davis or J2 Global. Somebody. IGN Israel only has 172 followers. Is that really them? Maybe this probably isn't their real Twitter account. Seems unlikely. But yeah, maybe just stick to video games. I know that they're all getting moist in their soy-filled pants to talk about a global issue, but we don't go to Kotaku or Polygon or IGN to hear your thoughts on that. We want to hear when the latest PlayStation 5 batch is going to get released, what's up with the latest next-gen hardware, what's the best webcam to use for streaming. These are things we care about your opinion on. Politics is not one of them. What a spectacular backfire. Hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.